Yes, I know, but what else do you expect? This is the canon event of every single F1 YouTuber. I am not a real F1 YouTuber if I haven't made a video on Lance Stroll, so here we go. Lance Stroll, real name, Lance Strollovich, also known as Vitch Tits, also known as the Window Licker, also known as the man every single F1 fan seems to hate. Now, if you ask me what my opinion on Lance Stroll is, I used to be a big fan of his back in 2017. Didn't care about him in 2018 because Williams were so irrelevant. They're more relevant in 2018 than in 2019, believe it or not. Sparked a lot of controversy when his dad outright bought Force India, and that guaranteed him a free seat until he doesn't want to drive an F1 anymore. And well, it looks like that's still going up until this day, but that doesn't mean I hate him, because in 2020, I genuinely became a Lance Stroll fan. Sure, 2019 was pretty mid, but in 2020, he was showing great signs in the early stages of the season. But I think after the Italian Grand Prix is where things started to change. And believe it or not, in 2021, he was scoring points more consistently in the early stages of the season than Sebastian Vettel. And from 2022 onwards, I kinda did not really care about this man's existence, because you really only see him on the broadcast when he does something completely incompetent. So today, I'm gonna be looking at every single incident Lance Stroll has been in his F1 career, because if we include his junior series, it's gonna be a really long video. And before you think this is a hate video, no, it's not. In fact, this is probably the only substantial and neutral video on YouTube you're gonna find about Lance Stroll, because all the other ones just clown on him. Specifically, this one YouTuber that pretty much started the entire Lance Stroll hate train. Now, I won't be including mechanical faults like random tire explosions, like I said earlier in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, because that's not his fault. He can't control that. I also won't be including reliability DNFs. Again, he can't control that. And I also won't be including driver error, unless that driver error is actually completely very stupid. Now, Stroll's first ever wheel-to-wheel incident came at the 2017 Chinese Grand Prix, in only his second ever race. Now, he was able to make it to Q3, but his time was only good enough for P10. Now, he was able to maintain P10 throughout the entire opening lap until turn 10, when he makes contact with Sergio Perez. Now, there isn't really a clear view on this, because Perez onboard doesn't exist anywhere, even on F1 TV. Well, they didn't start putting up the onboards on F1 TV until like 2018, midway through 2018. So, it's quite difficult to tell if you don't have the onboard of Perez. But if we look at Stroll's onboard, you can see he's taking the regular racing line, and Perez just took a nosedive into the rear of his car. So this isn't Stroll's fault at all. He was just a sitting duck in this. So his first ever wheel-to-wheel incident in F1, it wasn't his fault. Well done. Might be different going forward though. Now on lap 12 going on to 13 at the 2017 Bahrain Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz goes in for the super soft compound tires. And on the pit exit, you can see Lance Stroll ahead of him. Now let me just play this on board for you, and I think you've definitely seen this before.
Inside. It was, you just, tell me, turned into me, like if I was not there.
Well, I'm tempted to say, hang on a minute, Carlos, you were behind him.
Yeah, sorry, Carlito. That's down to you, that one.
I think we all agree. We don't have to argue on this, do we? This is very clearly Carlos Sainz's fault. You can see he's way behind Lance Stroll going to the apex, and he just goes one. He sends it down the inside, even though he's never close to Stroll at all. He's never alongside, and he's at the pit exit. You're supposed to brake earlier here, because if you brake late or brake normally, you're gonna take a really tight line on the exit of turn 1. I don't get what was going through Carlos' mind here, because normally he's a really smart driver. And again, Stroll couldn't really do anything about this. Sainz was really optimistic. I guess he saw something that wasn't really there. He thought Stroll would back out, but you're not supposed to back out from that. Sainz was not supposed to go for that. This is completely on Carlos, and if you say it's Stroll's fault, you're just a hater. And for the rest of 2017, nothing much happened. Maybe you'll have a few mistakes in free practice, but everybody does. Until the Malaysian Grand Prix. And yeah, let me just play this clip for you.
After the race has finished, we're on the slowdown lap.
Vettel just ran right into the side of me.
Is that possible? Stroll is not looking where he's going.
He completely shunted into my car.
Now I think Grosjean's onboard shows it the best, and they're really just oblivious to each other. It can be seen as both Seb cutting across Stroll's line or Stroll driving into Seb. It's a really dumb incident as well. I think this is a racing incident, but it's at the very end of the race in the cooldown lap. And I have a theory this is what caused Sebastian Vettel's spark plug issue in Japan. And there was nothing else for the rest of 2017. But very surprisingly, in 2018, there was only one incident, and it was with Brendan Hartley at the Canadian Grand Prix. So, how did this go between Stroll and Hartley?
His elbows out, he had to, and eventually Verstappen
Oh,
was...
and there's a massive crash with Brendan Hartley, and he's got tangled up with Lance Stroll.
Let's review this. Now, judging from Hartley's onboard, you can clearly see that Lance barely gives him any room. But I'm trying to be as neutral as I can here, and to be fair to Stroll, he had a snap of oversteer. That Williams loves shredding its tires going against the grain of the track, and the rear temperatures were probably heating up, and that led to him losing the back end of the car. And yes, you can say that Lance was covering Hartley's line, but this isn't really an overtaking spot in Canada. Well, Canada only has one overtaking spot, and it's the back straight. So, I think it's a racing incident. I'm inclined to say it's a racing incident, and I think both drivers could have done things differently here. So, it's not Hartley or Stroll's fault. It's just a racing incident. That's it. That's the only incident of 2018. And now time for 2019. And for 2019, we only have 2 incidents. And the first of that 2 came at the 2019 Spanish Grand Prix with Lando Norris.
Deployed, and this is going to close the whole field up as through turn 1 went Lance Stroll and Lando Norris. Norris around the outside, and as he went into turn 2, Lance Stroll's got the advantage. Norris was trying to squeeze through, and yeah, he took out the racing point. And
I don't think I need to explain this. I mean, just look at the onboard. Lando was always alongside him throughout turn 1 and turn 2. If he was never alongside Stroll, I would understand that it would be Lando's fault. But he was alongside him throughout the entirety of turn 1 and turn 2, so it's clearly Stroll's fault for closing the door. So Lance Stroll is now up on the scoreboard. And now we head to Monza. Another very stupid one.
not a seen Stroll, but I don't know if he was looking to see who was coming through.
Just came back on a circuit like an idiot.
But then Lance did the same then to Toro Rosso.
You know what? Let me do some editing real quick.
Just came back on a circuit like an idiot.
There, that's a lot better. But yes, Sebastian Vettel did come back on the circuit like an idiot, which means both Lance Stroll and the rest of the grid get 1 point. And those are the only incidents for 2019. And 2020, oh Lord, have mercy on my soul. Now at the 2020 Tuscan Grand Prix, Lance Stroll has a suspension failure or a puncture, one of those two, and smashes his racing point into turn 9. So this isn't his fault, it's a reliability issue. And he was actually en route to a podium in this race, by the way, so this was very unfortunate. At lap 1 of the 2020 Russian Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz clips the wall. Why didn't he brake for this? Okay, I won't even question this. And at turn 6, Lance Stroll gets clipped by Charles Leclerc. So, again, this isn't Stroll's fault at all. Charles just went for a move in a place which isn't normally an overtaking spot. So, 2-4. Why is Lance still down? Most people would expect him to be like 6-0 by now, but still 2-4. Now, I think we all know this infamous crash between Stroll and Verstappen at the 2020 Portuguese Grand Prix in FP2, and all people say this is Stroll's fault, but if you listen to the radio between Stroll and his engineer, you wouldn't call it Stroll's fault. It was a miscommunication.
Keep pushing, Lance, keep pushing. I didn't see anyone.
Not once did Brad remind Stroll that Verstappen is creeping up to do a push lap after Stroll just completed his push lap. Now sure, you can say that Stroll should have checked his mirrors, but again, he was on another push lap, he wasn't reminded of anyone nearby, so he just went for it. So, this is Brad's fault. Brad was a terrible engineer as well, by the way. If you watch the 2020 season and some of 2021, Brad was absolutely horrible. And it's good that him and Stroll are no longer together, but it's a bit too little too late, isn't it?
Brad, what you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
And the actual Portuguese Grand Prix, Stroll swoops around the outside of Lando Norris, barely gives him any room to play with, both of them that have damage, clearly Stroll's fault. We are now 3 and 4 in the leaderboard. Stroll is making a comeback. And time for the last Stroll incident in 2020, the Bahrain Grand Prix. Now I think we all remember what happened in lap 1, Romain Grosjean doing his best Michael Jackson Pepsi impersonation and bursting into a flame. No, that's probably a terrible joke, but hey, everyone makes fun of that crash. Even Grosjean makes fun of himself. Anyways, on the restart, however, Danny Kvyat and Lance Stroll do their best Pastor Maldonado and Esteban Gutierrez impersonation. And this is clearly Kvyat's fault. He literally went for a dive that was never gonna happen, so 3-5. Why is Stroll still trailing by 2? I thought he would be 8-0 by now, is what I would say if I'm an F1 fan who watches F1 on Instagram Reels and TikTok. And also, just to mention, Danny Kvyat got himself in 2 pretty major crashes in the same night. Well, I do think the Grosjean crash was kinda on Grosjean, actually. And sure, for now, it may seem like Stroll is trailing, but from 2021 onwards, the Aston Martin era, things will start to change. Now, Stroll's first crash of 2021 was at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. This is clearly not his fault. You can see his tire becoming a 2013 carcass for a minute there. And I actually forgot to mention another puncture, the 2017 Japanese Grand Prix. I don't know why I didn't mention this, but Stroll's first crash of 2021 wasn't anyone's fault. It was Pirelli's fault. Now, at the start of the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas played Wii Sports Bowling. And a few places behind, Lance Stroll gets caught up in this. He brakes really hard and rear locks into Charles Leclerc's side pod, and Daniel Ricciardo has collateral damage. And if you look at that onboard, he was just approaching that corner way too quickly, saw what was happening up ahead, slammed the brakes, rear locked. This is Lance Stroll's fault. And Stroll is now reeling in again. 4-5. Just 1 down. And the next race in the Russian Grand Prix, oh boy, will things change. Also, I like how when we finally get a good Russian Grand Prix for the first time since 2015, it gets booted off the calendar, but it makes sense why it was booted off. Just wanted to mention that real quick because this Russian Grand Prix was crazy. But we're here to talk about Lance Stroll, and man's had a total of 3 incidents in 1 damn race. How on earth did you manage that? Now, I'd like to believe this is lap 48. Sebastian Vettel attempts to go around the outside of Lance Stroll turn 10, and Stroll just squeezes him into the wall, making contact, and this is clearly Lance's fault. Barely gave him any room to go around the outside, barely gave him any space whatsoever, and smashed his teammate into the wall. Then proceeds to crash into Pierre Gasly, no question who's at fault here, and then spins on his own. Well, to be fair, he was on worn hards in a very greasy track, so I'll cut him some slack here. But 3 strikes, and you're out. And won't you look at that? Stroll is finally up on the leaderboard.
Curry, one-on-one, Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving.
And that'll do it for 2021. But the fact that it was only 2 races where he had major wheel-to-wheel incidents, and he's now up on the scoreboard, and he was down by 2 to begin 2021 with, so it's good. It's just gonna get worse from here on out. In qualifying for the 2022 Australian Grand Prix, Canada go on a civil war. And this is one of the few times where Nicholas Latifi isn't his fault, because Stroll sees him coming and just turns into that Williams. I don't... this is the stupidest crash I've ever seen. And just think about it for a moment. Imagine being in a crash with Nicholas Latifi, and it isn't Nicholas Latifi's fault. Holy cow. And the lead keeps on building. At the 2022 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Alex Albon goes for a dive on Lance Stroll, and Stroll closes the door and both of them crash. At face value, this looks like Stroll's fault, but if you look at it deeper, Alex goes for a move way behind Stroll, and he's never going to make that corner in a million years. I'd say this is Albon's fault. I wouldn't say it's Stroll's fault, because Stroll wouldn't have expected Albon to go for that move from that far back. Crashes in qualifying in Azerbaijan, nothing too serious. At least no one else had to deal with this stupidity and was just being stupid in Monaco. Again, no one else had to deal with this. And now we head to the infamous American Grand Prix. Oh no.
Fernando Alonso goes off the track. That's a high-speed crash, and he's made contact with Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin.
Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll.
You know whose fault this is. Yeah, he moved way too late. 8-6. And fun fact, Stroll and Alonso would be teammates the very next season. And little did Alonso know, this gave him a preview for their first race together as teammates. 9-6, what a way to segue into 2023. In the Australian Grand Prix, him and Leclerc collided at turn 3, but this was definitely Lance's fault. He was sandwiched between Leclerc and Alonso. Really nothing he could do in this situation, so 9-7. And up until the Mexican Grand Prix, all of these are just gonna be driver errors. So, compilation time? Forces Bottas wide in Mexico in the stadium section. Bottas loses the rear end and smashes into his rear right tire, so he kind of did this to himself here. We're finally up in double digits territory. As we head into the 2024 season, Lance Stroll clips the inside of a wall in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. This was such an avoidable crash. Sure, Verstappen did this before, but that was in Monaco where the walls are tighter, and that's in free practice. He was still able to make a decent recovery drive in the race. This crash from Stroll, however, was a dumb rookie mistake done in an actual race, so I don't know what to tell you. And at the Chinese Grand Prix, I'll just let this one play.
Here we go. Lock up for everyone. Oh, contact at the back between Stroll and I think Ricciardo. This was at the head. Oh, that is ridiculous. That is a huge hit into the back of Daniel Ricciardo for Stroll, who then had to pit. This is what it looked like on board.
Idiot should stand on the brake, check wing damage. Idiot should stand on the brake, check wing damage.
This idiot slammed on the brakes, I hear you say. Well, this idiot over here was looking in his mirrors instead of looking straight ahead in a situation where you're not supposed to look in your mirrors. Only 3 more crashes to go. This nightmare is almost over. Now, the 2024 Miami Grand Prix sprint is a bit of a difficult situation because sure, Lewis Hamilton comes steaming down the inside and makes contact with Alonso, hits Stroll, and Stroll hits Norris, but Stroll barely gave Alonso any room to play with whatsoever. I think one incident led up to another incident because let's say Stroll gives Alonso room, maybe Alonso leaves room for Lewis as well. So I'll give this a racing incident because it's clearly not Alonso's fault, it's either Lewis or Stroll. I see this more as Lewis' fault, but it's too close for me to put on the scoreboard, so it remains 11-7. I'll do Qatar before Brazil first, even though Qatar came after Brazil, because I want to save the stupidest crash for last. I'm pretty sure this is turn 4, and you can see here Lance understeers into the rear of Alex, but I don't really think this is Lance's fault because it's lap 1, the car is heavy, of course he's gonna understeer. I think Alex also could have left a bit more room. I mean, Hülkenberg did the same thing in turn 1, didn't get penalized for it, but Stroll got penalized for this. I don't think he should have been penalized, so it doesn't go up on the scoreboard. And as I said, I saved the stupidest one for last.